Have you ever walked into a room and felt your heart racing, your palms sweating, and your mind scrambling for the right words? Maybe it's at a party, a networking event, or even just talking to a stranger. Social anxiety isn't just nerves. It's that constant voice in your head saying they're judging you, you're going to embarrass yourself, or why did you even come here? I know that feeling all too well. And here's the secret most people won't tell you. Even the strongest, most confident people face social anxiety. In fact, some of the greatest minds in history, like the Stoic philosophers Marcus Aurelius and Seneca, wrestled with fear, doubt, and discomfort in social settings. But instead of avoiding it, they developed powerful tools to face it head-on. In this video, I'm going to share 7 Stoic tips that can help you crush social anxiety and walk into any room with calm and confidence. These aren't just vague motivational quotes. They're practical strategies you can apply today to transform the way you think, feel, and show up in social situations. By the end of this video, you'll not only understand your anxiety better, but also know exactly what to do about it. Stay with me, because what you're about to learn could completely change the way you experience the world. Tip number 1, focus on what you can control. Let's be honest, one of the most exhausting parts of social anxiety is how much energy we waste worrying about things completely outside of our control. What if they don't like me? What if they think I'm awkward? What if I say something stupid? Sound familiar? Here's the truth. The Stoics figured out thousands of years ago. We only have control over 2 things: our own thoughts and our own actions. That's it. We don't control what others think. We don't control their reactions, their opinions, or even the vibe of the room. But what we do control is how we show up and how we choose to respond. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and one of the most famous Stoic philosophers, used to remind himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. So how does this apply to social anxiety? Let's say you're walking into a networking event and your heart is pounding. You're worried people won't like you or that you won't know what to say. That's when you stop and remind yourself, okay, I can't control if they like me. I can't control if someone is in a bad mood, but I can control being present, listening carefully, and being kind. Shift your attention away from all the things you can't influence and zero in on the few powerful things you can. This mental shift is liberating. Here's a simple example. Imagine you're in a conversation and someone seems distracted. Maybe they're looking around the room or glancing at their phone. Instead of spiraling, they must think I'm boring. I must sound like an idiot. Pause. Remind yourself, their behavior is outside my control. My job is to stay engaged, listen actively, and be authentic. The moment you drop the need to control their reaction, you free yourself from that anxious loop. Another example, let's say you're giving a presentation at school or work and you notice a few people whispering or even smirking. Your brain will immediately go, they're laughing at me, I'm bombing this. Stop right there. That's an interpretation, not a fact. You can't control what's going on in their minds. Maybe they're whispering about lunch plans or a totally unrelated joke. All you can control is delivering your message with clarity and confidence. This mindset doesn't just reduce anxiety, it makes you stronger in the moment. Now, I know this is easier said than done, so here's a practical exercise you can use next time you're feeling anxious in a social situation. Before you walk into that event, coffee meeting, or dinner party, make a quick mental list of 3 things you can control. 1. Your body language. Stand tall, smile, and make eye contact. 2. Your listening skills. Focus on really hearing what the other person is saying, instead of worrying about what you'll say next. 3. Your intention. Maybe your goal is just to connect with one person or to practice introducing yourself confidently. That's it. Everything else, out of your hands. Let it go. Here's the amazing part. When you stop clinging to control over other people, you actually become more confident and likable. Why? Because people can feel when you're relaxed and authentic. No one enjoys talking to someone who's obviously trapped in their own head, overanalyzing every word. But when you're focused on showing up as your best self, when you're not desperately trying to manage the uncontrollable, people naturally gravitate towards you. I'll give you a personal story. A while ago, I was at a big conference. I didn't know anyone, and I started getting in my head, should I go up and introduce myself? What if they brush me off? What if I stumble over my words? Then I remembered this Stoic lesson. I took a deep breath and told myself, my job is to be curious, to ask questions, and to listen. That's all. I went up to one person and said, hey, I'm Alex. How are you liking the event so far? And you know what? We ended up having an amazing 20-minute conversation, not because I was perfectly witty or charming, but because I showed up, engaged, and let go of the rest. So next time you're caught in that anxious spiral, remember, focus on what you can control. Your thoughts, your words, your actions, and leave the rest alone. To sum it up, you don't control other people, you control you. And when you master you, everything else becomes a lot less scary. Tip number 2. You don't need to have an opinion about everything. All right, here's a big one that most people overlook. And trust me, it's a total game changer. When you walk into a social situation, whether it's a party, a meeting, or in a casual hangout, your brain starts going into overdrive. Do they like me? Did I say that wrong? Is that guy over there judging me? Should I have worn something else? Why didn't she laugh at my joke? We are constantly, almost automatically, assigning opinions and judgments to everything around us. And you know what that creates? Exhaustion and anxiety. But here's the incredible Stoic insight. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor himself, once said, you don't have to have an opinion about this. Let that sink in for a moment. You don't need to judge everything. You don't need to label every single experience as good, bad, awkward, embarrassing, or perfect. You can just let it be. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're at a dinner and you tell a story. Some people at the table laugh, some smile politely, and 1 or 2 people don't react at all. Instantly, your mind might go, oh no, I'm boring. That story was stupid. They probably think I'm trying too hard. But wait. What if you stopped right there and reminded yourself, I don't need to have an opinion about their reaction. Maybe they were lost in thought. Maybe they didn't hear you clearly. Maybe they just have a different sense of humor. None of it has to mean that you did something wrong. By dropping unnecessary opinions, you create space for peace. You free yourself from that constant inner commentary that fuels anxiety. Here's another everyday example. Say you're at work and you walk past a coworker in the hallway. You smile and say hi, but they barely nod back. Instantly, your mind races. Did I do something to upset them? Are they mad at me? Did I mess up that project last week? But again, here's your Stoic reminder. You don't need to have an opinion about that interaction. Maybe they were distracted. Maybe they were late for a meeting. Maybe they just didn't notice you. You are not obligated to turn it into a personal crisis. Now, you might be thinking, but isn't it important to reflect on things so I can improve? Absolutely. Reflection is powerful, but reflection happens afterward, calmly and objectively, not in the middle of a social situation where your anxious mind is already working overtime. In the moment, practice letting things be neutral. Here's a simple exercise you can use the next time you catch yourself overanalyzing. 1. Notice the thought. For example, I think they didn't like what I said. 2. Pause and tell yourself, I don't actually know that, and I don't need to decide right now. 3. Refocus on the present, the conversation, the moment, the people around you. Let me share a quick personal story. A few months ago, I was invited to speak at a panel event. After the talk, people came up to chat. Some were enthusiastic, asking questions, while others just smiled politely and moved on. My old anxious brain would have said, "They must have thought I was boring. I probably wasn't as good as the other speakers." But this time I caught myself. I literally thought, I don't need to have an opinion about their reaction. Some people engage deeply, some people don't. That's life. I did my part, and that's enough. And you know what happened? I went home feeling calm and proud, instead of beating myself up. Here's why this works so well. Most social anxiety doesn't come from the event itself. It comes from the story we tell ourselves about the event. The Stoics teach us to strip away the extra narrative and just deal with the facts. Someone didn't laugh at your joke. Fact, they didn't laugh. Story, I'm awkward. They hate me. Someone didn't text back right away. Fact, they didn't respond. Story, I must have annoyed them. See the difference? When you stick with facts and stop creating stories, you stay grounded, you conserve energy, and you become someone who radiates calm instead of insecurity. So, here's your takeaway for tip 2. Next time you're in a social situation, remember, you don't need to judge everything that's happening. You can just let it be. Drop the extra opinions. Let go of the unnecessary stories. Trust me, when you do this, you'll walk through the world with so much more peace and confidence. Tip number 3. Process your emotions. Don't suppress them. All right, let's get real here. When we think about Stoicism, a lot of people assume it means shut down your feelings, or be a robot, or never let anything bother you. But that's not what Stoicism is about, not even close. The Stoics weren't cold or emotionless. In fact, they were some of the most emotionally aware thinkers in history. Marcus Aurelius journaled daily about his struggles. Seneca wrote letters about grief, anger, and fear. Epictetus gave advice on handling disappointment and hardship. Here's the key. Stoics didn't suppress their emotions. They processed them. And when it comes to social anxiety, this lesson is a total game changer. Think about it. When you're anxious before a social event, what do most of us do? We try to push it down. We say to ourselves, just stop being nervous. Get over it. You're fine. We distract ourselves by scrolling on our phones, watching videos, or over-prepping our conversations in our head. But here's the truth. When you avoid or suppress anxiety, you don't make it disappear. You just bury it for later. And later, it usually explodes when you least expect it. It's like swiping your credit card when you can't afford something. Sure, you avoid paying now, but the bill will come with interest. So what's the Stoic approach instead? Face the emotion. Name it. Observe it. Get curious about it. For example, before you head to a party, you might notice a tight feeling in your chest or a racing heart. Instead of thinking, ugh, why am I like this? Pause. Say to yourself, this is anxiety. It's okay. My body is trying to protect me, but I'm not in danger. Notice the sensation without judgment. Let it rise. Let it fall. It's just a feeling, not a command. Here's a personal example. A while ago, I was invited to a friend's wedding where I didn't know many people. As the date approached, I could feel that familiar knot of anxiety building. What if I have no one to talk to? What if I stand there awkwardly all night? Old me would have tried to distract myself, maybe binge watch a show or overthink every possible conversation starter. But this time, I sat down, took a few deep breaths, and said out loud, I'm feeling anxious. That's okay. It's normal to feel nervous before an unfamiliar event. I reminded myself that the feeling wasn't a sign that something would go wrong. It was just my brain's way of preparing for the unknown. And you know what? By naming it and facing it, I felt lighter. I walked into that wedding calmer and more present than I ever expected. Here's a practical exercise you can try. 1. Pause and notice. Where in your body do you feel the anxiety? Is it your chest, stomach, hands, jaw? 2. Label it. Say to yourself, this is anxiety and this is nervousness. Give it a name. 3. Be curious. Ask, why am I feeling this? What's the story I'm telling myself right now? 4. Breathe through it. Take a few slow, deep breaths. Imagine the feeling like a wave. It rises, it peaks, it passes. Remember, you are not your anxiety. It's just an experience moving through you. Another important point, when you process emotions, you also give yourself a chance to learn from them. After a social situation, you can reflect and ask, what triggered my anxiety? How did I handle it? What helped me feel better? This kind of reflection helps you build resilience for the next time. Let's talk about why this matters so much. When you suppress your emotions, they tend to leak out in unhealthy ways, snapping at people, avoiding situations, or feeling burned out. When you process your emotions, you develop emotional strength. You become someone who can stay grounded, even when things get intense. And here's the cool part. When other people sense that you're comfortable with your own emotions, they feel more at ease around you. Why? Because emotional honesty is magnetic. People are drawn to those who can say, yeah, I was nervous, but I showed up anyway. So here's your takeaway for tip 3. Don't run from your anxiety. Sit with it. Name it. Breathe through it. Learn from it. Anxiety doesn't define you, and it doesn't have to control you. By processing your emotions like the Stoics, you'll become stronger, calmer, and more resilient every time you face a challenge. Tip number 4. Don't believe everything you fear. Most of it won't happen. Let's be honest, social anxiety is a master storyteller. It whispers in your ear before you walk into a room. You're gonna mess this up. You're gonna embarrass yourself. They're all gonna laugh at you or judge you. Sound familiar? Here's the thing, 90% of what we fear in social situations never actually happens. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it perfectly. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. Take a second and really think about that. We torture ourselves with endless what-ifs. What if I say the wrong thing? What if they think I'm boring? What if no one talks to me? And most of the time, none of it happens. Even if something awkward does happen, it's usually way smaller than we imagine, and people forget about it much faster than we do. Let me give you a real-life example. A few months ago, one of my friends was invited to give a toast at his sister's wedding. He was so anxious leading up to it. For weeks, he kept telling me, what if I freeze? What if I forget my lines? What if people think I'm a terrible speaker? Guess what happened? He delivered the toast beautifully. Sure, his hands shook a little and he stumbled over one or two words, but people loved it. They clapped, they laughed, they even cried a little. And afterward, nobody remembered the small stumbles. They only remembered the heart and the honesty. That's the truth about social anxiety. Our minds focus on the worst-case scenario, but life rarely plays out that way. So how can you apply this Stoic wisdom to your own life? First, become aware of the stories you're telling yourself. Next time you're feeling anxious before a social event, write down or say out loud the specific fear. For example, I'm scared people will think I'm boring. I'm worried I'll say something dumb. I'm afraid I'll be left standing alone. Then, here's the key part. Challenge that fear. Ask yourself, how likely is this really? What's the actual evidence for this fear? If this does happen, is it as catastrophic as I'm imagining? Most of the time, you'll realize that your fears are inflated, and even if something does go wrong, you're resilient enough to handle it. Here's a quick mental exercise I use that comes straight from the Stoics. Imagine the worst-case scenario, and then zoom out. Let's say you trip over your words in a conversation. Worst case, someone notices and moves on. Big picture, you're still the same person, still valuable, still worthy. Let's say you tell a joke and no one laughs. Worst case, it's an awkward moment. Big picture, you learn, you adjust, you move on. Here's another personal story. I once hosted a live webinar, and about 10 minutes in, my slides glitched. For a few seconds, I just stared at the screen, frozen. My heart pounded, my face flushed. All those anxious thoughts rushed in. Oh no, this is a disaster. Everyone's judging me. I look so unprofessional. But I took a deep breath, laughed a little, and said to the audience, "Well, looks like we're having some technical fun today." The audience laughed with me. We fixed the issue, and the rest of the webinar went smoothly. And afterward, nobody remembered the glitch. They remembered the content and the energy. This experience reminded me that most fears are paper tigers. They look fierce in our minds, but when we face them, they collapse. So here's your takeaway for tip 4. Your fears are usually louder than they are accurate. Question them. Challenge them. Don't believe everything they tell you. And even when something awkward happens, because, hey, life isn't perfect, remind yourself, this moment does not define me. I can handle it. I can laugh at it. I can learn from it. The next time you're heading into a social situation, do this quick exercise. 1. Name your top fear. 2. Ask, how likely is this to happen? 3. Ask, if it does happen, can I handle it? 4. Smile and remind yourself, I've survived every awkward moment so far. I'll survive this too. By practicing this mindset, you don't just reduce anxiety, you start building real resilience. Tip number 5. No one can harm you without your permission. This is one of my absolute favorite Stoic ideas when it comes to social anxiety. It's incredibly empowering. Let me explain. Have you ever walked away from a conversation replaying every word in your head? Why did I say that? They must think I'm so awkward. Or maybe someone made a sarcastic comment. Someone made a sarcastic comment and you carried it around all day feeling small and embarrassed. We've all been there. But here's what the Stoics would remind us. Other people's words, looks, or judgments don't have power over you unless you give them that power. Epictetus, a Stoic philosopher who was born into slavery and rose to become one of the greatest teachers of his time, put it beautifully. You are hurt the moment you believe yourself to be hurt. Read that again. It's not the words or the looks or the silence that wounds you. It's the story you tell yourself about them. Let me give you a personal example. A while back, I was at a networking event and I introduced myself to someone who gave me a half smile, nodded, and then turned to talk to someone else. Immediately, my brain went wild. Wow, I must have annoyed them. I must be so boring. I should just stop trying to network. I'm terrible at this. But then I remembered this Stoic teaching. I paused and asked myself, did they really hurt me? Or did I just hurt myself by interpreting their behavior in the worst possible way? Maybe they were tired, maybe they were distracted, maybe they just weren't interested. And that's okay. The real damage came from me choosing to make it personal. Here's why this is so powerful. When you stop giving people the power to define your worth, you take back control. You become less reactive, less sensitive, and much more resilient. Here's another real-life example. Imagine you're at work and you share an idea in a meeting. One of your coworkers shrugs it off or makes a dismissive comment. Old you might think, they think I'm stupid, I shouldn't have spoken up. But Stoic, you can say, their opinion is their own. It doesn't define my value or the validity of my idea. You can choose whether or not to accept their judgment. So how do we apply this practically? Here's a simple exercise you can use when you feel stung by someone's words or actions. 1. Pause. Instead of reacting immediately, take a deep breath and notice the emotion rising up. 2. Ask, what story am I telling myself about this? Are you assuming they're rejecting you, judging you, laughing at you? 3. Reframe. Say to yourself, they are allowed to have their opinions. I'm allowed to not take them personally. 4. Choose your response. You can smile, let it go, or calmly address it if needed. But you're doing it from a place of strength, not wounded pride. Let me tell you one more quick story. A friend of mine used to avoid social events because she was terrified someone might make fun of her or reject her. But over time, she started practicing the Stoic mindset. She told herself, if someone judges me, that says more about them than about me. Their words only hurt if I let them. She began showing up more, speaking up more, and, surprise, most of her fears didn't come true. And on the rare occasion when someone was rude, She shrugged it off. She realized she was way stronger than she'd given herself credit for. The bottom line, you don't have to accept every judgment or criticism handed to you. You have the power to say, no thanks, I'm not carrying that. And when you live this way, something amazing happens. Social anxiety loses its grip on you. You walk into rooms not trying to be perfect, not desperate for approval, but grounded in your own worth. You become unshakable. So here's your takeaway for tip 5. People can say or do whatever they want, but you choose whether to feel harmed. You hold the power. Next time someone's reaction stings, remember, I decide what this means for me. Their opinion is not my identity. I am stronger than this moment. Practice this over and over and watch your confidence soar. Tip number 6, take a walk to calm your mind. All right, this tip might sound simple, but trust me, it's a total game changer. Let's talk about one of the easiest and most powerful ways to calm social anxiety. Go for a walk. You might be thinking, really? That's it? Yep. And here's why it works, straight from both Stoic wisdom and modern science. The Stoics, especially Seneca, believed that walking wasn't just about moving your body, it was about refreshing your mind. Seneca wrote about how the mind needs space to wander, to reflect, to loosen its grip on daily stress. He said, we should take wandering walks outdoors so that the mind might be nourished and refreshed by the open air and exercise. Now think about your own experience. Have you ever been stuck in your head, overwhelmed with anxious thoughts before a social event? Maybe pacing back and forth at home? Maybe scrolling endlessly on your phone? Maybe rehearsing conversations over and over? What you're doing in that moment is tightening the anxiety loop. You're spinning in circles, and the more you try to think your way out of it, the more stuck you feel. That's where walking comes in. So walking breaks the loop. When you move your body, you signal to your brain that you're safe. Your nervous system starts to calm down. Your breathing slows. Your thoughts become clearer. Let me share a personal example. A few weeks ago, I had to speak at a big event, a conference with hundreds of people. The morning of the event, I could feel it. Tight chest, racing mind, shaky hands. My old habit would have been to sit and rehearse every line of my talk, panicking over every detail. But this time, I put on my sneakers, stepped outside, and took a 20-minute walk. I didn't rehearse. I didn't even think about the speech. I just walked, paid attention to my breath, noticed the trees and the sky, and let my body settle. By the time I got back, I felt 10 times calmer and clearer. And when I walked onto that stage, I was grounded. Not because I perfected my speech, but because I had calmed my mind. You don't have to wait for a big event to use this. Anytime you feel social anxiety creeping in, before a party, before a date, even during a break at work, take a walk. Here's how you can make it even more powerful. 1. Leave your phone at home, or at least put it on airplane mode. This is your time to unplug. 2. Pay attention to your surroundings. Notice the feel of your feet on the ground, the sound of the wind, the colors around you. Let your senses pull you out of your head. 3. Breathe deeply. With each inhale, remind yourself, I am here. With each exhale, release tension. I let go of what I can't control. 4. Let your mind wander. This isn't the time to force solutions. Let thoughts come and go without grabbing onto them. What's amazing is that this isn't just some feel-good ritual. It's backed by science. Studies show that even a 10 to 15-minute walk can reduce cortisol, the stress hormone, and boost your mood. And when you walk regularly, you train your body and brain to handle stress more effectively over time. Now, you might be thinking, but what if I can't go outside? No worries, you can walk around your home, your office, even just stand up and stretch. The key is to move your body and give your mind a break from the anxious loop. Here's another great benefit. Walking also creates mental space to reflect, to process emotions, to gain perspective. Remember how we talked earlier about not suppressing emotions? Well, walking helps you digest those feelings instead of stuffing them down. For example, maybe you just had an awkward conversation. You're replaying it in your head, feeling embarrassed or frustrated. Go for a walk. As you move, you'll often find the sting softens. You'll start to see the situation more clearly, maybe even laugh at it. And you'll realize, okay, that wasn't the end of the world. So, here's your takeaway for tip 6. Don't just sit and stew in your anxiety. Get up and move. Let your body help calm your mind. The next time you're gearing up for a social event or you're feeling overwhelmed, remember this simple but powerful tool. Lace up your shoes. Step outside. Breathe. Walk. You'll be amazed at how much lighter you feel and how much stronger you become in facing whatever comes next. Tip number 7. Reflect and journal to build self-awareness. Alright, here we are, tip number 7, and I saved one of the most powerful tools for last. If you truly want to crush social anxiety, you need more than just in-the-moment tricks. You need a long-term practice that helps you understand yourself, learn from experience, and grow stronger over time. That's where reflection and journaling come in. Now, before you roll your eyes and think, journaling, really, that's for teenagers with diaries, hear me out. Journaling has been a core Stoic practice for centuries. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in the world, kept a journal. But he didn't write in it to show off or impress anyone. He wrote to understand himself, to process his emotions, and to remind himself of what really matters. For the Stoics, journaling was like a gym for the mind. It's where they trained their thoughts, examined their reactions, and prepared for the next day. So how does this help with social anxiety? Well, social anxiety thrives in the dark. It grows stronger when you leave it unexamined. But when you bring it into the light, when you write about it, explore it, question it, it starts to lose its grip. Let me give you an example. Say you go to a party and you come home feeling deflated. Maybe you didn't talk as much as you wanted. Maybe you stumbled over your words. Maybe you felt invisible. Instead of just brushing it off or beating yourself up, grab a notebook or your phone and ask yourself, what actually happened? What did I feel in the moment? What story am I telling myself about it? Is that story really true? You might realize, oh, I was quiet because I was tired, not because I'm boring. Or, actually, I did have a nice conversation with one person, I'm just ignoring that part. Or even, yeah, it was awkward, but so what? I showed up. That's progress. By reflecting, you start to separate facts from feelings. You become your own coach instead of your own worst critic. Here's a personal story. A few years ago, I had dinner with a group of people I really admired. Afterward, I felt terrible. My brain was screaming, "You didn't say anything smart, you looked so nervous." But when I sat down to journal about it, something shifted. I realized I had contributed. I had asked thoughtful questions. I had been present. My anxiety was exaggerating the negative and ignoring the positive. That's the power of journaling. It shows you a clearer picture. So, how do you start? Don't overthink it. You don't need a fancy journal or perfect handwriting. You just need 5 to 10 minutes, either in the morning or at night. Here are a few simple prompts to get you going. 1. What social interactions did I have today? 2. What went well? 3. What challenged me? 4. What did I learn for next time? If you prefer, you can also use your phone's notes app or even voice memos. The medium doesn't matter, the reflection does. Now, you might wonder, what if I don't know what to write? That's totally normal at first. Start small. Even just one line a day can build a powerful habit. You might write, I spoke up in the meeting today and didn't die, win, or felt awkward at lunch, but at least I showed up. The point is to track your progress. Notice patterns and remind yourself that you're growing, even when it doesn't feel like it. Here's another bonus. Over time, your journal becomes a record of your resilience. You can look back and see just how far you've come, the conversations you survived, the moments you were proud of, the fears you overcame, and that builds confidence like nothing else. So, here's your takeaway for tip 7. Make reflection a daily practice. Journal your experiences. Celebrate your wins. Learn from your stumbles. Social anxiety loses power when you meet it with curiosity, not judgment. And remember, you're not trying to become perfect. You're aiming to become a little more aware, a little more compassionate, and a little more courageous each day. All right, my friend, we've just walked through 7 powerful Stoic tips to help you crush social anxiety. Let's do a quick recap. Focus on what you can control. You don't need to have an opinion about everything. Process your emotions. Don't suppress them. Don't believe everything you fear. Most of it won't happen. No one can harm you without your permission. Take a walk to calm your mind. Reflect and journal to build self-awareness. Remember, social anxiety isn't something you need to eliminate overnight. It's something you can manage and transform over time. The Stoics remind us that we all face fear, discomfort, and doubt. The difference is in how we respond. And the fact that you're here watching this tells me one thing. You're already on the path to becoming stronger, calmer, and more resilient. So first off, thank you. Thank you for spending this time with me, for showing up for yourself, and for being open to growth. If you found even one tip today that you want to try in your life, I'd love to hear about it. Drop a comment below and let me know which Stoic tip resonated with you the most. Or share your own experience with social anxiety. I read every comment and your story might inspire someone else watching. If you enjoyed this video, it would mean a lot if you hit that like button. It helps more people discover this kind of content. And if you want to keep learning practical tools for a calmer, more confident life, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss future videos. Thanks again for being here. Stay strong, stay curious, and remember, you've got this. See you in the next video.